Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This week we're going to study about the dreams of Yosef. So let me give you a short introduction, and then we'll see what the Rabbi has to say. At the beginning of the portion, we read about Jacob, Yaakov, our forefather, desired to relax in the Holy Land. And God said, no, you're a righteous man. You will relax in the world to come. Here on earth, you are to face challenges. And he loses his son. He is under the impression that his son got murdered. In truth, his son was sold as a slave. And later, 22 years later, they will reunite. They'll be reunited. But at this point, just before, the instigator that caused all these animosity and having Yosef being life is threatened and perhaps almost died, but then sold as a slave, is because his father favored him. Yaakov favored Yosef, and he purchased him a special colorful coat. And the brothers could not even speak to him because inside they had a lot of hatred, so they couldn't communicate with him. And then in the middle of all that, Yosef is having dreams. Not one, but two dreams. The first dream is that he's gathering sheaves of wheat in the field, and his bundle stood in the middle, and the sheaves and the bundles of the other 11 brothers surround this bundle, and they bow down to him. They get all upset. They say to him, "You are trying to hint that you're going to rule over us. We're going to bow down to you. How dare you?" Then he dreams another dream. This time there is a change. He says to his brother, "I saw 11 stars, sun and moon bowing down to me." And they share it with their father. This time in the dream, it's not just the brothers, but the sun and the moon referring to father and mother. And therefore, Yaakov says, how dare you dream that way? Do you expect me and your mother to come and bow down to you? And the Torah says that after Yaakov, so to say, rebuked Yosef, he kept it. As we all know, he kept it, meaning he knew it will happen, but he was waiting for it to happen. In addition, I'm giving you the simple. Can you just wait a minute? In addition, what he said is Yaakov tells Yosef, this is the simple explanation, is that the sun and moon, there is something that's impossible to happen based on your dream, because sun and moon representing father and mother, your mother is dead. So therefore, the dream is not going to happen. Yes, Dick, what can I do for you? Thank you. This is the introduction to our discussion today. This is so many levels the Rebbe is going to go through. So some of the paragraphs I'm going to show verbally so we can move a little faster. We begin with that story. He told the dream to his father and brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed?" We are on page 476. "Will we come, I, your mother, and your brothers, to prostrate ourselves on the ground before you?" This is the father's rebuke of Yosef. Rashi, the Rebbe will pick Rashi and comment on Rashi. Rashi cites the word, "will we come?" and explains that Yaakov asked Yosef, "Isn't your mother Rachel already dead? So how is it possible for her to bow down to you?" However, Rashi continues, Yaakov did not know that the matter referred to Bilhah, who had raised Yosef as if she were his mother. Bilhah was the maid of Rachel. And Bilhah raised Yosef because when his mother died, he was very young. He was either 7 or 8 years old. And because she raised him, she's considered the mother. So when he dreamt sun and moon, he refers to father and mother. Father, natural father; mother, adoptive mother. And that refers to Bilhah. Rashi continues. Our rabbis explained Yaakov's words differently. Rashi does not say another commentary, but the rabbis explain it a little different. Deriving from here that there is no dream without meaningless components. Anytime someone has a dream, there is something that is untrue, incorrect. Yaakov was aware of this concept, and therefore the not true part is that the moon referring to his mother. His mother is not alive. So maybe that's the part. In other words, how do I know that a dream is going to happen is when part of the dream is incorrect. Part of the dream is impossible to happen. However, he intended to remove the matter from the hearts of his sons to prevent envy of Yosef. The reason he turned to him and rebuked him, how is it possible for father and mother to bow down? He knew the answer. The answer is, mother, the reason you had a part of the dream about your mother is the part that's incorrect. It's actually a support that the dream is actually a real dream. But the reason he went on to say, how is it possible for father and mother to bow down to you? He was trying to remove the envy and the jealousy from the brothers and explaining that it's not a real truth. It's not going, nothing will happen. He told him, Yaakov told Yosef, will we come? He was implying, just as it is impossible for your mother to come, so too the rest of the dream is meaningless. The rabbi now goes on to ask whether Rashi is giving us two explanations or one explanation, or one that is all-inclusive. Most commentators say that these are two separate explanations Rashi gave. The first one is, Rashi says that Yaakov said to Yosef, your mother is not alive, so your dream has no value, and he didn't know that it was Bilhah, the maid. The second interpretation is, he knew that something was not to be correct, therefore he assumed that mother is not the part that will be fulfilled because his mother is not alive, and he knew that there is, because he knew that there is no dream without incorrect details. But the reason he rebuked Yosef is to make the brothers come down and lose some of their envy of Yosef. Did you understand that?
So what was incorrect about the dream?
That's the question that everybody's going to ask. But he didn't know that part.
But I would imagine the Ruach HaKodesh, she knew the plan. Not going to know. It's in the thinking with the other kids.
So again, you have two explanations. If you mix in Ruach HaKodesh, the second one is that he knew it's going to happen, except he wanted to remove some of the envy from the brothers. That's why Rashi is bringing two explanations. The Rebbe is not so happy with two explanations, and the Rebbe says that they don't make sense. Why? Because, let's see what the Rebbe says. I am reading on the bottom paragraph of page 47.7. However, this explanation, this interpretation of Rashi's words appear forced, for the narrative continues. His father awaited the matter, which Rashi interprets to mean he awaited and looked forward to the dream's fulfillment. In contrast to Rashi's first explanation, according to this understanding, Scripture explicitly states that Yaakov was certain that Yosef's dream was true and would truly be fulfilled. But the second one, but he did not know when, and so he was awaiting and looking forward to its fulfillment. Says the Rebbe, if you say that the first part he told Yosef the dream is incorrect because your mother is dead, how is it possible that later we see that his father was waiting for the fulfillment of the dream? It's a total contradiction to that interpretation. Therefore, says the Rebbe, both of Rashi's words are one interpretation. Did you understand that, Harry? Larry, do you understand what we're talking about? So let me summarize again. Rashi says that when he rebuked Yosef, there are seemingly two interpretations. The first, he told Yosef, how is it possible for you to think that we're going to come to bow down to you? Your mother is not alive. Sun and moon representing father and mother. Your mother is not alive. Therefore, it's an incorrect dream. There is no meaning to that dream. Second interpretation, he knew it's true, and he knew that part of the dream is incorrect, and that part of the dream is the mother to bow down to him. However, he wanted to say the rebuke Yosef just to appease the brothers, so they should not be envy of Yosef. Says the Rabbi, according to the first interpretation, it means that Yaakov was sure the dream is incorrect. How is it possible that Yaakov says later, right after, he says he's waiting, he really is looking forward for the fulfillment of the dream? We just read that Yaakov, according to the first interpretation, that Yaakov assumed that it is an incorrect dream.
Tangential question.
Yes.
Did Yaakov know that Yosef would become the vice or the prime minister of Mitzrayim?
I don't think so. Yaakov was assuming that Yosef is dead, by the way. For 22 years he mourned after him. On this basis, the Rebbe says it is possible to say that Rashi is not citing two separate interpretations. Rather, his entire statement should be seen as one explanation. Says the Rebbe, everything Rashi said is one explanation, not two. And here's how the Rebbe explained it. This is reflected in the precise wording Rashi uses. Our rabbis derive from here. It doesn't say in another explanation. And therefore, such wording does not imply that he is beginning a new interpretations, rather continuing his previous explanation. Rashi does not write as he does in other instances when he cites the interpretation as an alternate understanding or an our rabbis interpret it or the like, and Rashi continues on with the first explanation. Rashi should thus be understood as saying, since Yaakov did not know that the matter referred to Bilhah, yet was certain that Yosef's dream would be fulfilled, as the narrative continues. His father awaited the matter. Our rabbis derive from here that there is no dream without meaningless components. And this is what Yaakov's conception, as the rabbi is going to explain. Says Rashi, according to the Rabbi, there was one part of the dream Yaakov knew is incorrect, which is the mother bowing down. The mother is not alive. Therefore, Yaakov said to himself, there must be a dream, a real dream must contain one part that is incorrect. And that was the incorrect part. And therefore, he is awaiting for it to be fulfilled. He is rebuking Yosef, not because it's an incorrect dream and it's meaningless, but because to appease the brothers and make them come down to assume that it will never happen. This was Yaakov's conception, that even though the dream as a whole would be fulfilled, this particular point that Yosef's mother would bow down to him was one of its meaningless components. In truth, however, this was not a meaningless component because the matter referred to Bilhah. And Rashi says, no, there was no incorrect component, as Harry pointed out, because Yosef's dream, the part of the moon, is referring not to Rachel that is dead, but to Bilhah. So everything was correct there, almost, as we'll find out some things are not. In other words, it's one interpretation, and this is again, I'm sharing again the way the Rabbi sees it in Rashi. No two explanations. Yaakov rebukes Yosef and says, you dare think that me and your mother are going to come down to bow down to you? How is it possible? According to Rashi, he did it to appease the brothers, but he himself knew that it is a true prophecy of something to come to happen soon. And he told the brothers, there is one part that is incorrect, which is the moon bowing down to you. In truth, says Rashi, it refers to Bilhah. There was no part that was incorrect because Bilhah replaces the mother as the adoptive, as the foster mother. And therefore, he was waiting for it to be fulfilled. Rashi then concludes, explaining that although Yaakov knew that the dream would be fulfilled as a whole, he still said, we come, me and your mother, to remove the matter from the hearts of his sons. All he said to Yosef, rebuking Yosef, is to remove the envy of the brothers against Yosef. They did not know that there is no dream without meaningless components, and therefore it was possible to tell them, just as it is impossible for your mother to come and bow down to you, so too is the rest of the dream meaningless. In this way, the brothers would not envy Yosef. This is the way the Rabbi sees in Rashi. Rashi does not give us two explanations, it's one. Otherwise, if it's two explanations, the first explanation doesn't match with the fact that Yaakov is waiting for it to be fulfilled. Yes?
You have a minhag, if you do something bad, you fast. But if you go according to this, you do something bad, maybe meaningless.
All right, so you're mixing two separate borscht and this and vinegar. If someone had a negative dream in particular way, to avert the decree, they fast immediately the next morning. But just in certain cases where a person saw a Torah falling down to the ground, or he saw someone getting killed, these are the very extreme situations. This has nothing to do with the dream over here.
I'm going to bring up the point that if everything has meaningless part, and
not everything is meaningless. One part is meaningless. This is a prophecy. So because it came through a dream, one component of the story must be incorrect. By the way, by the dreams of Pharaoh, he also had two dreams. And there was a component there that was incorrect, that the rest of the dream interpreters could not fathom, and that's the uniqueness of Yosef. He was able to tell Pharaoh, this detail is incorrect because your dreams are very true. In other words, if in the dream all you saw can be interpreted completely 100%, it is incorrect dream. Yes, Larry. Let's talk directly about the topic because we have so much to cover.
So,
We didn't even start. This is an introduction, by the way.
because it's so to remove the envy from the brothers, it certainly doesn't work.
Of course, it didn't work.
It didn't. But maybe
So,
that's why.
but you know what? People always attribute to Yaakov the animosity. The Talmud says a person should not favor one son over the others, because for little bit of favoring that he did, it caused the Jewish people going to exile. By the way, the reason we end up in exile, and until this very day we pay for it, is the selling of Yosef. All start for the envy, for the favoritism he showed. So give him a little credit. Here you see he's trying to diffuse some of it.
Well, but maybe that's also why he sends Joseph out to find him. Because he thought maybe he's kind of repaired the. He sent Joseph to find the rest of the brothers.
Despite that, he knew that there was animosity.
If I thought there was real animosity, I'm not sure what extent.
Right, I don't understand that either.
But maybe he thought in his interpretation of the dream that he somehow removed that animosity. I mean, that's all.
Yaakov, we don't know how much of a time is lapsed between, so it could be much later. And still, if he knew there was animosity, I don't understand why he's sending him. The value of that story that he sends them is the greatness and the humility of Yosef. Despite the fact that he's getting into a dangerous situation, to honor his father, he accepted it. Okay? Yes.
The interesting parallel I'm thinking of right now. So Yaakov favored Joseph and then brought envy from other brothers.
Right.
And then God favors Israel and everybody hates Israel.
Very good. Good point. It's a very good point.
So if Yaakov should...
We will find out if we get the third layer the Rebbe is going to give us, is that the whole story of Yaakov waiting for it to be fulfilled is talking about us today, exile. But we'll find out. I'm hoping to.
The conclusion he's trying to say is, if Yaakov favored and that wasn't the right thing, then God favors Israel, right? Because he follows.
In addition to the fact, but the Talmud tells us that we should not do that. So you can't fight with the Talmud. But the fact is, there is a reason why he favored him, because he was the next Jewish leader. Noeg Katzon Yosef, we say in sound that Yosef is one of the 7 Ushpizins. He's one of the 7 leaders, guests that comes to the Seder. So you can't downplay Yosef's power.
Right.
There are details, not everything can be explained.
But everything goes back to Esau's being the anti-Semite. That's where everything started from that point. So anything we see from here on is part of that descendancy.
Okay, so what does that have to do with Yaakov favoring Yosef?
That we were hated because Esau started the anti-Semitism.
Okay.
We just carried forward.
let's continue. If in truth the matter referred to Bilhah, additional clarification is necessary. What are the meaningless components of Yosef's dream? In other words, the Rabbi is getting into another detail in the story. Rashi says there is no good dream unless some part is incorrect. What part was incorrect? Rashi tells us that the moon refers to not his mother who is dead, but Bilhah. So there is no part that's incorrect. The question can be resolved by prefacing the explanation of another puzzling dimension of the overall narrative. There's one more problem there. Once we solve it, we can address this question. And that is, similarly, Rashi's interpretation of the verse, his father awaited the matter, that Yaakov awaited and looked forward to its fulfillment. He was excited, like I'm about to go on a cruise. V'aviv shamar et hadavar, the words in the Torah, Rashi says, he was awaiting endlessly or patiently, without patientless, for it to be fulfilled. What kind of a father is waiting for it to happen, that he is going to bow down to his son? That Yaakov awaited and looked forward to its fulfillment implies that this is something he cherished, desired, and looked forward to happening as soon as possible. What would a father desire in that his son would reign and he would bow down on the ground in front of him? How is it possible that his father cherished the moment, cherished the time when it will be fulfilled? What? He's going to bow down to his son? True, the adage, a man will be jealous of anyone except his son and his student, is easily understandable. However, this merely teaches that a person will not become jealous when his son or his student attain a greater degree of prominence than he. However, it is not logical to assume that a father would anticipate his son ruling over him. In addition to his son's elder brothers, in a matter that they would all be the son's servants and bow on the ground before him. There is a rule in the Torah that a man will be jealous of anyone who is in the same field of expertise. Lawyers, accountants, stockbrokers, teachers, always we want to be better than anybody else. There are two exceptions, students and children. If my student become greater than I am, if I thought someone had to be a jeweler, not just teaching Torah, I thought someone had to drive a train, and he became more knowledgeable and better. He performed better surgeries. I trained him how to be a doctor, and he achieved greatness. The person teaching, the master, the teacher will never get jealous. Same as children. If children attain greater achievements than the father or mother, the parents will never get jealous. That's the way God created the universe. So we can say that here Yaakov was not jealous that Yosef is going to be greater than Yaakov. Because if you say Yaakov is bound down to his son, it means that Yosef is on a greater level than Yaakov. Says the Rabbi, I understand that. But to look forward to it, well, where is it coming from? You can say he wouldn't be jealous that his son is a king and he's not. He's not going to be jealous because it's his son. But he's not going to look forward to it and cherish that. This is something very unusual.
Shomer Hadavar means he wasn't looking forward to it. He kept it to himself.
That's what you say. But Rashi says, Metzapeh. Metzapeh means impatiently awaiting. Mata yavo hadavar. How soon it will happen. This is Rashi. And Rashi is based on the Talmud, that he couldn't wait for the fulfillment of the dream. Not just he knew, he guarded the dream and he knew one day it will happen, but he was looking forward to its fulfillment every single day. The next two paragraphs, the Rabbi says that some commentators address that, saying that Yaakov felt that Yosef's dream will be fulfilled when the resurrection of the dead, Mashiach's time. When Mashiach will arrive, everybody will come back alive. That's when he will bow down to Yosef. And they explain it very well. Says the Rabbi, this is a very side part of it, and it's not the real fulfillment of the dream. You can't say you're waiting for the fulfillment of the dream. You can say, I'm waiting for the time of the resurrection of the dead. but it's not to do with the dream. He was waiting for the dream to be fulfilled. So these are commentators that explain that address this question. How come Yaakov is waiting, cherishing the moment it will happen? That's now the Rabbi is going to move on to the explanation. We are on page 482. It is possible to say that a resolution can be reached through an analysis of the wording our rabbis would derive from here that there is no dream without meaningless components. Seemingly, based on the above explanation, there is only one element of the dream that was not true, that Yosef's mother would bow down to him. If so, the rabbi would have provoked the singular. There is no dream without a meaningless component, not components. In other words, the rabbis tell us components plural, not one. Similarly, if it's not only on the mother, the issue, it's one. Therefore, it appears that they were precise in using the plural components, not one but more. And that is another mistruth in the dream, not one but more. Yaakov thought there were several meaningless components in Joseph's dream. He thought that just as the component that Joseph's mother would bow down to him was meaningless because Yaakov did not know that the matter is referred to Bilhah, so too he thought the prophecy that he would bow down to the ground before Yosef was meaningless. Yosef says, I saw the sun and the moon bowing down to the ground to me. And the idea of bowing down to the ground, Yaakov knew is not true. Here is what the Rabbi says. The true meaning of the dream was only that Yosef would ascend to a lofty position to the extent that he would rule over all his brothers, but not that he would also rule over his father, who would prostrate himself to the ground before Yosef. He knew that the dream means that he's going to be the next ruler. He knew that the brothers will bow down to the ground. You know what bowing down to the ground means? You can bow down to a person when you see him. Bowing down to the ground means you prostrate yourself, you nullify yourself. I'm nothing in front of you. You do that only to a king. Yaakov said to himself, there is one component that's not correct. One is the moon bowing down. Mother is not around because he didn't know it's Bilhah. The second one is the sun, moon bowing down to the ground, meaning I will bow down and nullify myself before the king. He did not think it will ever happen. He thought that the brothers will be under his subjugation, under his rulership, but not Yaakov. And says the Rebbe, that's the way it happened. It is possible to say that this was indeed what happened, that Yaakov's bowing down to Yosef was one of the meaningless components of the dream, for Yaakov did not prostrate himself on the ground before Yosef. All that happened was Israel bowed down to the head of the bed. One can ask, the brother, Yaakov, by the way, Yosef had two dreams. One is the sheaves and the other is and the stars. Actually, they bowed down twice to Yosef. The first time, when they came first, they didn't know it was Yosef, they bowed down to him, and Yosef remembered the dream, and he saw they have been fulfilled. The second time, when they came with Benjamin, they bowed down again. If you read in this, so two dreams have been fulfilled. But the sun and the moon, you won't find Jacob bowing down. It says that when they met, when Jacob is coming, they hug, they kiss, they cry, and they cried a lot. But there is no bowing down. You know where does it say bowing down? Yaakov is about to die. Before he died, Yosef comes to visit him, and he gives them the last order and testament. He asks them to be buried back in Hebron, and it says that Yaakov bowed down to the head of the bed. He bowed down to Yosef, but he did not bow down to the ground. And this is actually the inconsistency, the non-truth part of a dream. He saw the sun, moon, and stars bowing down to the ground. It was not correct. The sun did not bow down to the ground. In addition, the moon bowing down, Yaakov says there is no moon, moon is mom is not alive. He didn't know it's Bilhah. That's why the rabbi says there is no dream without an inconsistent components, more than one, plural. One is the bowing down to the ground. The second is that the mother is bound down. Yes.
When he bowed down in the bed at the end when he was dying, I thought it was the Shekhinah.
Because of the Shekhinah, he bowed down towards the head of the bed, but he bowed down for his father, for his son. He bowed down to Yosef. It was fulfilled. By the way, the sun and moon only in the second dream. In the first dream, there is no father and mother. In the first dream, it's only the stars. 11 stars. 11 sheaves, 11 bundles. So therefore, it was fulfilled. A second time, 11 stars and father and mother. In other words, it was only one time. I don't know about Bilhah, but I know about Yaakov. It was fulfilled only when he's about to die. He bows down to Yosef because he wants Yosef to keep the promise. However, he does not bow down to the ground. He bows down towards the head of the bed.
Okay. But Bilhah was not alive by us.
She was alive. Rachel was not alive. Bilhah lived till 100 and something years. Bilhah lived for a very long time.
We don't have any spots in the Torah that says that Bilhah.
We don't see it in the Torah.
But you would never consider Bilhah the mother. I mean, if we were doing Mishnah, you would use Rachel's name.
How do you know?
As a Mishnah, right? I mean, right? So we would never consider her the mother.
You're making a point, but it's not, you cannot compare the two. According to Jewish law, if someone wants to sit Shiva to mourn after the death of a foster father and mother, they're allowed to. Which if it's just somebody else, it's forbidden. Okay? So you can't take it away. We had a situation, you don't know the person is very active in the synagogue. So I can share the story. His father divorced his mother at when he was very young. He was like 2 or 3 years old. She remarried. And the new husband treated him just like his son. The second husband is a Levi. And he told me that he wants to be treated as a Levi because the other father totally lost touch. I think remarried and had nothing to do with the previous marriage. So he never attended his wedding. Indeed, he has no connection. The new father was part of his life. He wanted to be treated as a Levi. And I said to him that Levi is lebeit avotam, following the father, the real true father. If you never met, it doesn't mean it. Later on, that's the adoptive father died. So he asked me, now he already was told that he's not a Levi because the real father was not a Levi. The Levi father, the one who married his wife a second time, died. And he says to me, he feels that he wants to sit Shiva because to show respect, he grew up with this man. This man really loved them and raised them. And by Jewish law, he sat Shiva. So you can't just take away that idea that it's not a true mother. We see that there was that part of the dream referred to Bilhah. I am going to give you verbally the rest of this talk because it's too, there is so much to go. The Rabbi goes through this is the Rabbi's teaching. You can go around different details and subjects that by the time we go back, we have to be reminded about the topic. The Rabbi is asking the next question. So right now we understand Rashi is giving us one commentary, and that commentary is Rashi is giving us one interpretation that there was one part of the dream that was inconsistent, incorrect. Yaakov did not feel that he's going to bow down to his son, even though he's not jealous, but he didn't feel that it will ever happen for a father to prostrate himself before his son. And there was parts of the dream that are incorrect. Yaakov knew that some parts are incorrect, and therefore it's a sign it's a good dream. But he told Yosef and rebuked them that it's an incorrect dream just to appease the brothers. They should not grow in their envy of Yosef. Now the Rabbi says, now we need to understand another part. The Torah tells us that Yaakov was cherished it, and he was looking forward for the moment when it will happen. How is it possible for someone to wait for his son to rise to be a king, and the rest of the children, not Yaakov, only the sons will bow down to him. After all, it's not such a pleasant suggestion. Yet we see that Yaakov is looking forward every moment for it to happen. And by the way, that's the word V'aviv shamar et hadavar. He guarded it in a box because he cherished it and he was looking forward for it to happen. How is it possible to have my children to bow down, even though to a sibling, and he's saying he's looking forward to it? The rabbi brings several answers. One answer the Rabbi says is because he knew that when this dream will be fulfilled, they will begin the process of the enslavement of Egypt, which God already promised Abraham. They knew it's going to happen. God told Abraham, anybody knows about the covenant God, that the people will be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. The 400 years began when Yitzchak was born, I believe. So he knew that the enslavement is starting, and therefore he was waiting for it to happen, because he says if he's going to be a king, he's going to be a king in a strange land, and that's when we will have to come there. We will come there by the time we're gone. This enslavement will come. Says the Rabbi, it doesn't answer the question, because enslavement is not such a good thing. How can we say that he's looking forward to it? The Rebbe answers the following, and the Rebbe goes to another attempt to explain it, but the final explanation of the Rebbe, there are two, but I'm going to try and combine them. The Rebbe says the difference between Yosef and his brothers. The brothers were shepherds. Yosef was not a shepherd. That's why he was sent, right? That's how he was sent, to say hello to them. He was not. What's the difference between a shepherd and Yosef? The brothers removed themselves from the worldly matters because they feared that the world will take them over. You go to do business, everybody's cheating. You should also cheat. You should round the corners. They did not want to get challenged by the world day-to-day life challenges. So what do? Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, they all move away from society. They're there with the sheep. They graze, they see nature, they enjoy life, but they do not face all the tests that all of us go through in our day-to-day life, and therefore they can be connected to God. Yosef, on the other hand, his entire life is the opposite. He is within the community, in the center of action. He is a leader. He does exactly the opposite. He runs the other direction. He's going to society. Why? As the Torah, if you find it, you look in the Torah, you'll find that Yosef not only did himself remain steadfast in his connection to God when he was tested with the ultimate of tests, but when he became the king, he had changed the rules to make the people in Egypt behave in a nicer and better manners. And in that way, Yosef was unique more than the brothers. Yaakov knew that Yosef represents a person who goes into the world, faces challenges, and is able to stick to the ethics that God gave us. And that's why Yaakov was waiting for the moment that Yosef will be able to bring them to Egypt, the worst part of the universe, yet influence them to behave and to do the right thing. And that's why he was looking forward. He knew that the dream, when Yosef is going to rise to power and become the king, you know what will happen? They'll bow down to him to the ground. You know what bowing down to the ground meaning? Nullify themselves, accept his rulership, and follow his leadership. In that way, they will learn and adapt the idea that God, and that's the reason God wanted them to go to exile. So they shouldn't be shepherds, but they should change society, as Yosef did, and change themselves to be able to interact with the universe and do what's right. And therefore, even though it involved Yosef ruling over his brothers and they prostrate themselves to the ground, it is for a good reason, to make them better persons. Says the Rebbe, in essence, this is the story of exile. Yaakov knew that in order for God to rest among the Jewish people forever, they will have to go through that challenge, cross the bridge, to be part of the universe and not be able to be affected by the universe, but affecting the universe. Who can do it? Yosef. Yosef is the symbol for us as Jews throughout exile, to remind us, you can be sent as a slave to Rome. You can be sent to Spain and to Italy, but you are raising a family, you're doing business, you smile, you have a good attitude, you live a good life. When you do that, God will say, now it's time for us to return back home, to be able to have Mashiach. So the story of exile, as Larry was pointing out, the story of going down to Egypt and envy and all that is actually the story of exile throughout history. God ordered Abraham that they will be enslaved before God is giving them the Torah and make them in a nation. God ordered that we must go through exile of 2,000 years before we return back to us and build a temple and connect with us and bond with us forever. And therefore, Yosef is the one, the catalyst, that not only will start the movement, but will make it happen, because they had nobody else that was as powerful as Yosef, living in the midst of all the defilement and the negativity, and yet not being influenced by it, but continuing. And that's why Yaakov knew that it will happen. Not only he knew it will happen, he cherished that. He was looking forward because he knew that that's the step that not only will bring the children, his sons, into a point of where they are able to engage the universe and change, but also it will move on to the future, resembling exile and bringing us to the ultimate moment of the arrival of Mashiach. And that concludes our lesson today.
Sure.
Thank you, Rabbi.